Good evening and welcome again to Globespan 24x7, this Monday evening program. We want to welcome all our viewers at home and around the world. Tonight, many events have happened over the past few days, and you'll have a jam-packed program here to discuss. We want to thank Noir Singh and Globespan 24x7. We want to thank Devin for being our technical specialist who will give us all the information that we need. Post your questions online so we can ask our panelists tonight to help you, to help us along the way. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, since we last met, we have had a flurry of events. Last Friday, the Muslim community celebrated the festival of Eid al-Adha. According to the Holy Quran, Abraham was willing to sacrifice his son to God, total obedience. The question is, are we prepared to make some sacrifice of our own time and ourselves and what we have to God? As I said before, it is still a beautiful world if only it can begin with me. When I say me, I mean you, the individual. So to all our Muslim brothers and sisters, we want to wish you Eid Mubarak greetings. On Saturday, the day after Eid, Guyana celebrated Emancipation Day. The chains that kept our ancestors in slavery was finally broken. God created all of us equally, yet man in justice to our fellow man continue even after we broke the shackles of slavery. To all of our brothers and sisters in Guyana and around the world, we want to wish you happy emancipation. Yesterday, the drama of the March 2nd election came to an end, finally, with the swearing in of Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali as the 9th executive president of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. As we say in Guyana, the longest rope has an end. This had to come to an end. On behalf of our guests and Globespan 24x7, we would like to wish our new president, Dr. Irfan Ali, God's richest blessing, and that he blessed with wisdom, courage, and understanding as he leads our nation. Today, the Hindu community in Guyana and around the world celebrate what is called Raksha Bandhan, where sisters tie Rakhi around their brother's hand, the wrist of their hand, and she look forward. He promised her that he will look after her and to love her and to protect her from harm. In return, the brother will give her sister some sweet as a symbol of his acceptance that he will indeed love her and protect her. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we have had many events. With the swearing in of our new president, I would like to invite our guests to make their introductory remarks. Tonight we have no stranger to us, the leader of the Liberty and Justice Party, Mr. Lennox Schumann, the leader and president candidate of the United Republican Party, Dr. Vishnu Bandhu, the leader of the new movement and medical doctor, Dr. Gerald Ford, and no stranger again to us, my co-host tonight, is developer and real estate mogul in New York, Mr. Leland Rupnarayan. So gentlemen all, welcome to the program tonight.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you,
so
Charles.
to start tonight, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm sorry I have no ladies here tonight on our program. We're all men, and that's not anyway planning, but I did reach out to the PNC to have a representative here tonight. I didn't get no response, and I tried to get the PVP guys as well, but as you know, after the swearing in of the president, most of the PVP guys are busy trying to put their acts together, their plans together. So tonight we have 3 outstanding sons in Guyana, and of course one in New York here, Leland Rupnarayan. Gentlemen, Dr. Ford, you're on my program for the first time. I want to give you the opportunity first to what do you have to say with the saga coming to an end and the beginning of a new era in Guyana.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to your show. Greetings in the name of Christ. Greetings to your panelists and all your viewers. Right, so as you started, we came out of the independence, the emancipation holiday, and we could learn a very good lesson from that emancipation story. You would know that soon after emancipation, the Afro-Guyanese, newly freed, pooled their money together and their resources, their efforts, so that they could procure lands and so they could elevate themselves socially. It's that same spirit that we need in Guyana right now. Those were different tribes coming together to make a new future for themselves. Just as then, we need to come together in this time after this very divisive election and period. Even before the election, it was very divisive, and now after the election, we had 5 months of a very sad time in Guyana, where we almost lost democracy. So it is time for us to learn the lesson, especially coming out of that emancipation period, that our forefathers left for us, and apply it nationally. All people need to come together in love for themselves, in love for each other, so we can move this country forward. So that's my opening message.
Thank you, Dr. Ford. Mr. Schuman, what do you have to say about the events of the past few days and the swearing of our new president?
Charles, let me say good night to yourself, Dr. Ford, Dr. Bandu, Leland, and the viewers out there. It's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to be here. At least, hopefully, we could have a good discussion and share some info with some exchanges. I endorse what Dr. Ford said. We've struggled quite a long time. 54 years, well, we could contextualize history. We've struggled for over 54 years. And what you've seen within the last 5 months, it is pretty much the culmination of everything that we did not do in that 54 years. Political parties will say that they would have fostered democracy, they would have done a variety of things, but yet within the 5 months we have seen a complete breakdown in the system, and it is all because people in themselves feel that there is no enforcement mechanism, no one to hold them accountable. And once we have that and we continue down that path, what we are going to find is a lot of complicity and complacency in society, where people would seem like they could do anything and get away with it. I draw your attention back to the issues that occurred within that 5 months, where Mr. Granger would go out and say he's obeying the Constitution, the court rulings, and the laws and all of those things. But yet he continued to have cabinet meetings, even though the Constitution said that the cabinet was already dissolved as a consequence of the no confidence motion. So all of these things has given us an opportunity to take a snapshot of what we have not accomplished in 54 years. But through every great difficulty comes great opportunity. And I think what we have been given, and let me backtrack a little bit. I want to thank on this forum and on this broadcast the stewardship of Madam Chair. People don't recognize it. They may walk up and down her. But what she has done over that 5 months is permitted Guyana, through a very difficult process, to have violence-free elections. I mean, we had a little bit of mischief here and there, but nothing to the extent that brought us to civil war. Now, had she declared these results way sooner, we might have been in a vastly different position. And what we have been given this opportunity now is to look at all of the cracks that existed, not only in the last 5 months, but in the last 54 years, and find a way to heal those, to fix them, and to build something going forward. And I am very optimistic as to what will happen. We know that President Ali and the top tier were sworn in yesterday. We look forward to what I hope would be a team that could move Guyana forward for everyone collectively, not just for a hegemonic few, that the entire Guyana, benefits from the bounties that are to come.
Well said, Lennox, and I'm sure there's a lot of cracks that need to be filled over the last 54 years that we have experienced. And being one of the original people of Guyana, we look forward that you will be an integral part in changing the dynamic of Guyana so that we can have a real Guyana for all Guyanese. Dr. Bandu, you've been the longest member in our panel here tonight in the electoral platform. Now that the 5 months has gone after the March 2nd election with the swearing of the new president, what is in your mind tonight?
Thank you very much, Professor Charles, for having me once again on your program. It is very important that we all fought this fight. And we all worked very hard in bringing this to the end. As I said the last time on this program, that I could put my neck on the block for Madam Chair, because I know her. Whenever she had some problems, she called me. And she told me I'm the only political leader she usually calls to confide in. And I know her. And she has been doing she has done a wonderful job. There are no chairmen in Guyana who had passed through what she had passed through. She has been getting insult from both sides of the two major political parties. And she said to me, she said, Vishnu, if I say something and it suited the PNC, the APNU, the PPP, people tell him that she's an APNU person. If she said something that suited the PPP, the APNU people call and tell her she is an APNU person. And that's how it is going on, to and fro all the time, you know. So it's a very serious situation we were in, and now it come to the end, and I hope and pray that whatever Dr. Irfan Ali has said, he will carry it out. It's the beginning. As you know, the saying goes, new broom always sweep clean. And let's see what will happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishnu. And I think listening to the president yesterday at an impromptu swearing in, his words were very magnanimous, and I believe it set a good pace, a good tone, if that's the right word, to incorporate all of Guyana. And I look forward, as you said, new broom sweep clean. We look forward that that broom will continue to be new, and Guyana will continue to be moving towards, as Lennox said, into a direction where all will be involved. With me tonight, of course, is Mr. Rupnarayan. Leland, I know you also, like Vishnu, have been in politics for a long time. What are your thoughts about the event and with the swearing in of the new president?
Well, firstly, Sean, I feel very honored to be in the presence of 3 presidential candidates. Either one could have been the presidents had the votes gone differently. However, out of little acorns come great oaks, and I wish all 3 well in the next election. After 55 years and 150 days after elections, we finally have a result. This clearly shows that the laws of GCOM really needs restructuring. The laws are confusing, they're backward, they're unclear, and more or less, they give ambivalence to any direction that the law takes. So it's subjected to any sort of interpretation, depends on which side of the divide you're on. But Guyana is a strange country. In fact, it is so strange that we legally elect a dictator, because the power of decision making does not lie in parliament, it lies in the seat of the presidency. And that's what Guyana is. We have changed the captain of the ship, but we still have the same old broken down ship to take us forward. It is a land that's plagued with crime, poverty, poor water supply, daily blackouts. Not much will change in the first year of presidency. What I can say right now is that I wish people in Guyana, especially the leaders in Guyana, to stop thinking about third world politics, stop thinking about alleviation of poverty, and stop looking for handouts from the rest of the world, especially the United States. If you think as a first world leader, your country will become a first world country. But if you think as a backward person, your country will forever remain in a backward state.
Well said, Leland. I totally subscribe to that. Gentlemen, now that the government is in place, and we have heard of according to the Bank of Guyana report, the treasury is really empty. I know the last time I had Mr. Timothy Jonas on the program, he was giving us a great insight into the running of a country. Going overdraft might be not necessarily a bad thing, but as we speak now, the PPP has a manifesto that they present before the electorate. Now the people expect them to perform. Well, you cannot perform unless there is funding. I know now that the new government is in place, that funding will now begin to be available to them. How do you see the performance of the government with the limited resource we have right now in terms of finances and what is to be done? Gerald, we can start with you.
Well, definitely they're in a very challenging position. Right? The coalition would have argued that they were in the same position when they took office, if you remember the headlines that they made. But I think what has compounded this problem is that we're in a COVID-19 crisis. And this crisis prevents the optimal functioning of the economy because you need to close businesses at a certain time. You cannot travel as you want. You got to restrict the portion that you're bringing to your businesses and so on, right? So definitely boosting the economy will mean managing the COVID-19 crisis well, because on the other hand, if you don't manage it well and you lose your human resource, you still cannot, in sickness or in morbidity and mortality, you still cannot push the economy, right? So we need to first of all manage this COVID-19 crisis to the best of our ability to minimize morbidity and mortality. We need to move into reopening the economy, but definitely I think that some of the money could come from the reserves in the Federal Reserve. There's money there for us. We need to start accessing that. We need to pass the budget that for this year so we could kickstart the economy. But in terms of industries, I think the agricultural industry needs revamping. We could look to crops such as hemp and other things that could stimulate the economy. Definitely, we need to move to industrialization. We cannot stay as a producer of raw material and exporter of raw material. We need to move towards turning these raw materials into tertiary products, so when we export them, we could earn higher revenue from them. All right, renegotiating the oil deal to get better returns, that is a must if we are going to gather funds to boost this economy. And all other deals, all other mineral deals that are currently lopsided. Gold, bauxite, in the past couple of months, we saw the gold companies, the bauxite companies ripping off Guyana. So we definitely need to renegotiate those deals in order to have funds to push this economy forward.
Well said, Gerald. The thing, we've been saying that all the time too, that we cannot depend on the raw material to get us out, as Leland rightly said. If we think we are a third world country, we'll continue to be a third world country. I know, Vishnu, one of the comments from Edith says that even though Madam Chair took some time to make a decision, she came through at the end, even though there were some compromises. Do you see Guyana moving leaps and bounds forward in the next 5 years under Dr. Ali?
Yes, it could be if Dr. Ali keep his promise. It could move on, very rapidly. You asked about fund because our treasury doesn't have fund. Bank of Guyana broke. All right. But I don't think that will be a problem. The world will open their door and fund Guyana. Money will be coming in, loans and so forth will come back as usual, as it ought to be, because they realize the seriousness what had been happening in Guyana with the APNU not want to relinquish their position. So I don't see too much about the funding will be a problem for Guyana, although we does not have money. I am sure the door will open and fund will be coming in here. I could recall in early when the PBP took power in 1982. They didn't have fund also. But you know what? Many businesses had loaned money to pay the civil servant in Guyana. And if the people believe in the government, they will work toward the development in that country. Right now, the people believes in the PPP, and if they cut the card, playing the card right, they will do a marvelous job. If they keep all the promises that they make, they do tremendously good. As Barajagde had said, for the 23 years when they lost the 2015 election, he said they make mistake and they will correct their mistake. But we have to live to see that they correct their mistakes. Because sometimes they never realize the mistake what they said they make. So we have to wait and see what is happening. I will not give 100% credit as yet until I see what is happening, because the URP will be as a watchdog to this government, and that's what we are here for.
Thank you. Thank you, Vishnu. Lennox, for us to leapfrog into the future and for us to come out of this conundrum we're in, and as Dr. Ford mentioned also, with this COVID-19, it makes things even worse. There will need an influx of foreign currency in Guyana, at least $1 billion to $2 billion a year, at least for the next 5 years. If you were to advise Dr. Ali and say, listen, this is how we can get the funds in. There are thousands and thousands of Guyanese overseas and in Guyana who has a lot of cash, but individually they don't have enough. But together, if we pool our resource, we can have $2 billion input into Guyana every year. So we can really leapfrog our development. The thing is, a new government has a small window of opportunity. And once that window is closed, because people's expectation is that they will get things done. If after 6 months, maybe 6 months is too much, if after 6 months Dr. Ali is not performing, the people are going to start to react. What will your recommendation be to him for us to do what Leland said?
Charles, I think you would have answered the question, but I want to double back on what Dr. Ford said, right? Until we could get this COVID pandemic under control internally, it becomes a monumental task for us to move forward with any kind of a development agenda. And I want to ensure that the viewers understand that very clearly. It would be presumptuous of me to think that I could advise the People's Progressive Party, the new incoming government, on economics. They've got quite a few economists amongst other specialties on their team that have PhDs and understand those things way, way more than I do. But I want to offer this to your viewers. I don't think that we should sit there and expect massive changes in the short term. The things that are going to change in the short term would be a significant inflow of cash from these very same foreigners that want to come back and invest in Guyana. There has been a lot of finances that have been held at bay through this electoral process. And I think the conclusion of this electoral process has brought stability to the country, where people now know what government they have to deal with for the next 5 years at minimum. And having that in the back of their minds, now they could say, look, under the PPP's administration, these are the things that we could potentially expect. And I had this discussion with some of the businessmen, at least just socially, right? And now that we have that stability, believe it or not, the business people in Guyana are willing to open their purse, write those checks, open their bank account to be able to invest in the business and in the growth of Guyana. I don't see that 2 billion US a year is unsurmountable. We do have revenues in the US account from oil, from our last 2 shipments of oil, I think. And I think we could expect with this new administration, as the system starts to stabilize, they do have, in my view, a short-term plan to start alleviating the stress and struggles of the everyday, everyday needs of people, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, tiers 1 and 2. And I think they have a medium-term plan and also a long-term plan. But there needs to be quite a bit of patience considering the state that the APNU AFC has left the country in. Take, for example, and I know this because someone called me today, there was an emergency meeting for the COVID task force under President Ali. And out of that meeting, they found out about the issues that were not addressed and the actual real magnitude of COVID in Guyana. So we may have to be taking regressive measures. Instead of opening the borders so aggressively, we may have to regress to tier 1, where we lock down the borders and lock down the country again. If not, we are going to continue to see a spike in the COVID case, and we are going to struggle economically, because the economy in itself cannot operate in isolation. We do require direct foreign investment. We do require that international market, international reach. There's only so much we could do locally, and we have to be very cautious. And once again, I'm inclined to believe that the team led by Dr. Ali at this point, President Ali now, they're up to the task.
Thank you, Lennox. And some of the comments we're having on the screen is that you're right on target, and the people are encouraging you to keep focus as we go on. When we come back, Leland will have some questions for you to the panelists. So we'll take a short commercial break now, and then Leland will be on when we come back.
Compliments to the victory of the newly elected president of Guyana, Supreme Quality Carpets has a sale like no other. Stop by and celebrate with a brand new product provided by Supreme Quality Carpets. They beat all prices and give you the product that you deserve. So celebrate today and call Steve at 917-669-2593. Again, call Steve at 917-669-2593. Globespan 24x7
Thank you very much. Welcome back to our program tonight. We are having with us Dr. Gerald Ford, not the former president of the United States, but a medical doctor there in Guyana. He's the leader of the new movement, Mr. Lennox Schumann, the leader of the Liberty and Justice Party, and Dr. Vishnu Bandhu, the leader of the United Republican Party. Ladies and gentlemen, before I ask Mr. Leland to ask his question, I just want to encourage you again to please go to Globespan 24x7 and make a donation to the program. As you have seen, Globespan have been bringing all the events in Guyana, whether it's the court matter, the swearing of the president, anything that's happening in Guyana, Globespan is there. And there are comments that someone asked me, can we moderate the comments? But there's no one there to do it unless we have to pay someone. It costs money. So we're asking you, please go to Globespan 24x7 and make your contribution. Leland, over to you.
Well, first of all, I would like to make one very simple quote from a very famous person. A nation is not great by its size alone. It is the will, the cohesion, and the stamina with the discipline of its people and the quality that ensures it an honorable place in history. Lee Kuan Yew, former Prime Minister of Singapore. And that is what Guyana needs, cohesion among its people and leadership. As I indicated earlier on, if we are becoming steeped in third world politics, then it bodes very, very unwell for the future of Guyana. We have to address industries and we have to address wealth generation. Above all else, we have to address wealth retention. Now, Milton Friedman, the 1976 Nobel Prize laureate, said in very simple terms, one does not need high academic qualifications to be a good leader. One has to be decisive. One has to be strong, and one has to be coherent and logical in whatever plans you have. What happens in Guyana is that there's a lot of money that is circulating at the very top of the pyramid. That money will not trickle down to the bottom because the infrastructure of the country is so backward and so sloppy that people will tend to invest their money by importing goods, making their profit and banking that money overseas. So it's a constant skim off of money, and that goes to foreign banks. As opposed to retaining money in Guyana, where you can have local industries to generate wealth and generate taxes for the government, and at the same time provide employment for people. If you can keep that money in Guyana, but people don't want to invest locally in industry because it's a risk. The political climate is horrible. The infrastructure is horrible. In Guyana is a country where if you need milk, you must have your own cow. That's what it is. If you have a plant that makes ice cream, for instance, you have to have your own power generator. A few hours of blackout and all your profits gone in the ice cream business. So coming back to economic development in that country, one of the first barriers to economic development is corruption. Unless we have strict anti-corruption laws in that country in regards to sourcing of materials, sourcing of drug supplies and raw materials, issuing of contracts, and foreign investment that has to be monitored, we will not make progress. If we look at the past deals that have been made by various governments, Cambior, Omai, Barama, Bai Shanlin, Rusal, Bosal, the oil deal with Exxon, we're hopelessly lost. We are so idiotic in awarding these contracts that, in the words of Sparrow, the famous calypsonian from Trinidad, if you catch them broken, you can get it all for nothing.
Leland, you got a question for a panelist?
Oh, my question is simple. How do we go about retaining wealth in Guyana instead of having the wealth exported overseas? How do we develop the country with the local talent that you have there? I say this because the question is, if you look at the Guyana extractive industries, it's one of the most well-functioning entities in Guyana, and it is headed by someone who I know personally, Dr. Rudy Jadapat, who left the United States and went back to Guyana to take up that position. If we don't have the discipline and the technology and the what you call the acumen to run an industry or run a corporation or even run a ministry, that discipline, that lack of it, will not see Guyana going forward. I could tell you, I've been there. How do you think you can restructure the public service so you can get efficiency in terms of getting a passport, getting a death certificate and a birth certificate, getting to see a doctor, getting your NIS? Those are areas of problems. How do we restructure that?
You're putting too much in the question. We got to be very specific. So you ask a whole lot of different things there. I know which one the guys got to look for. Dr. Ford,
well, we have 3 panelists there. They can all answer these questions. They're all very accomplished. Remember, these 3 gentlemen could have been the president of Ghana, so they must be very competent here.
Gerald, you want to go?
All right, sir. Thank you. If we are to develop this country, the first thing that we need to do is to develop the human resources of the country. You hear me?
Yeah, we're hearing you.
The first thing we need to do is develop the human resources of the country. We need to revamp the education system. We need to, in terms of the curriculum, we need to modernize the curriculum at primary, secondary, and tertiary level. This government made a promise that they're going to make University of Guyana free. So we are going to hold them to that promise because it was also a promise of the previous government. And it's very important if we're going to catapult development because, as I said, we need capable human resources. But not just that, we need to diversify the courses offered at the university and make them accredited and also make them available in interior regions and other regions. Because the TNM had a plan where we wanted to develop high-class educational services in Guyana and control the price of it so we could bring a lot of people into the country to go to these schools and institutes. And the money that they would spend in the country over the 4 or 5 years they would spend in the country, that would go towards tourism, it would go towards the entertainment industry, the clothing industry, the carne shops, and all these things. So that money would circulate in the economy. So educational tourism was one of the things we wanted to promote. And out of that, we could have provided free education for Guyanese from the taxes collected from these businesses, from the increased economic activity, and so on. All right?
Well, sir, educating the people is a great concept. How do you keep these people in Guyana? How do you prevent them from not migrating?
That is the exact problem we are facing in the health sector because they got some nurses just waiting and some doctors just waiting for the border to open so they could go overseas, right? So how are we going to retain these people? We got to offer packages that is going to be packages that are going to be attractive for them. What people want a nice house lot, they want a nice house, they want to be able to further their education. So we need to offer those things right here in Guyana for them. And we have the land, we have all the forests. We could provide these things, right, to keep them in the long term. We need to increase salaries for people. But also, in order to boost the economy, as you rightfully said, we need industries in this country. Right? We need to turn our raw materials into tertiary products, export them at higher prices so we could get more money for them. But not just that, we don't need industries that are set up by overseas people that are going to repatriate all the profits to overseas. We need Guyanese-owned businesses. So another plan that the TNM had during the election campaign was to have local people own shares and also the workers own shares in the industries that we are going to set up so that they would have interest in it, they would invest in Guyana, and as their shares grow, they would further their standard of living. You won't be looking to the government all the time because you're not just a worker, you're also an entrepreneur because you own shares in businesses, you're an investor, right? So you increase the factors of production that persons own and it increases their wealth also, and that would raise the standard of living of Guyanese people, right? The issue of corruption that you raised, there's a very big issue and it's been holding back the country for far too long. The previous administration promised to put an end to corruption and they themselves have been involved in some corrupt acts We are hoping that all corruption under the PPP and under the APNU could be brought to justice so that we could put some of these things behind us. But it's very sickening because we have a lot, even the institutions set up to tackle the corruption become corrupt themselves. For example, SOCO. SOCO, right? It's corrupt from top to bottom. So we're in a conundrum when it comes to dealing with these problems. The justice system, we have seen that once you got money, once you got position, that you could get away with anything in this country. Certain people could get away with anything. Once you know people, right? So we gotta weed out the corrupt people in our institutions. In order for them to function properly, we need to bring them to justice. We need to make examples of them. I think in the past we have not made examples of people who have been found corrupt, and that embolden the next generation of white collar and these type of people, right? So we need to develop the institutions to deal with it. We need to ensure that these institutions are accountable and corrupt-free themselves. We need to bring people to justice and make them examples if we're to deal with corruption. Only then could we really catapult this economy, right? That's my input.
Before we ask Lennox and we should come in, Gerald, you think this government can undertake those tasks and get it done?
Well, that's what the Guyanese people want to see, and I will be supportive, and I think all Guyanese people would be supportive of any initiative in that direction, and that should help them. They have verbalized these things on the campaign trail, but we have heard political parties verbalize the same things, but it never come to pass, and we are in this position in 2020, nearly half a century after independence. We have not been able to materialize our potential. All right, so
thank you.
If they honestly embark in that direction, I believe all the Guyanese people will be behind them. But we have another problem in this country. The thing is, when the party of your choice is in government, you turn a blind eye to the corruption, right? For example, some of the things that we're seeing that we saw currently under the coalition, especially in the final days of the process, in terms of deals and lands given out and these things, the coalition supporters would have never supported that had it been the PPP. But they turned a blind eye to it. They didn't make it an issue. Likewise, when the PPP go in and they do their own thing, the PPP supporters who had been vociferously condemning the APNU would suddenly become quiet. So we need to come together in our own interests as Guyanese people and hold whichever government is in office accountable, because that's the only way that we are going to develop. We can't be partial and, as we say in Guyana, watch face, right? You got to hold your party accountable, even if it's the party of your choice.
So, as you're ready to go.
It's not just up to the government, it's also up to us to hold them accountable and to give them the encouragement to do what they need to do.
Leland, your question is one that there is no silver bullet that could address it. It has to be a multifaceted approach, much like everything else. But I want to posit one very important point. There is a reason why you have had teachers, doctors, lawyers, and stuff leave Guyana and go to the New Yorks and the Torontos and the Londons and go there and have no problems working in a coffee shop or going to sweep the streets or working in a car wash or doing one of these jobs. There is a reason why they're leaving Guyana, where they have a comfortable, relatively comfortable life, and going over there to do what I guess a lot of people would consider the low-end jobs. It is because they have confidence in the system that they are in. You know that if you go and work in New York, you go and sweep the streets or whatever, that at the end of the day, you're getting paid, the police force will function, the medical system will function, the schools will function, your tax dollars are being utilized for the benefit of the people, for yourself, and for your children. That confidence in itself is what is lacking in Guyana. You could devise the best laws, and we have seen it over the last 5 months. Until you have compliance with those laws, and until you have the necessary enforcement regimes and institutions, it doesn't matter how fantastic those laws are. Once people are willing to set those laws aside, take for example, Hamilton Green and Lincoln Lewis were blatantly, outright, telling David Granger to set aside the laws of Guyana, set aside the Constitution of Guyana, and just rule by decree. Now, had the environment been different, right? Had we been maybe 15 years ago, that might have been possible. But it would only be possible if the institutions that were meant to protect the people and the democracy do not function. And as long as the people in Guyana do not have confidence in those institutions, they will continue to migrate. You have confidence that when you go and sweep that street and you pay your taxes, that those very same tax dollars are going back into your community to invest in the very same infrastructures that you enjoy every single day. That part of that tax dollar goes to building the roads, building the schools, paying the public servants, and keeping society healthy. And those are the very fundamental things that are missing in Guyana. We could work with an education model, we could work with a different economic model. And how do you now keep people in Guyana, keep that wealth in Guyana, is to find the mechanisms so that people have confidence in the system, so that if I commit a crime, the people have confidence that I will be prosecuted to the extent of my crime and to the extent that the law permits. Not that someone is going to turn a blind eye. If I pay tax dollars, I don't want to know that when I go to NIS, there's no money for me to get. When I pay my taxes, I want to ensure that I am going to a hospital where my tax dollars are reflected in the service that I receive, that my children are enjoying benefits of my tax dollars, and we do not have that confidence in Guyana. And people will continue to depart the shores of Guyana until we find a way to give them that kind of confidence that we are working towards progress, that there is going to be the infrastructure there not only for themselves, but for their children, and to see their tax dollars at work in those very same institutions.
Thank you. Vishnu, you want to come in there? I know the loaded questions.
Yes, sure. I will talk about from a business point of view, and as the leader of the United Republican Party. It is all well and good you talk about schooling and you talk about university and you talk about this and you're talking about that. But from a business point of view, first of all, you have to know where you get this money from to do those kind of things. That might be a long-term program. But we are talking today, right now. The government, number one, has to revive the Constitution of Guyana so that people will feel comfortable. No president should be like a god in this country. If that Constitution that all of them had promised to revive before, do you think this 5-month long waiting period to declare an election would have happened? No, it would not have happened. And that when I come back again, the people have to have faith in a government for a country to progress. Now, talking about foreign investors and so coming in Guyana, as a businessman, if I go, I invest in Dominican Republic. I have to look at the government, the political situation first. If I come to invest in Guyana as a good businessman, I will look at the political situation in Guyana, how it is. if it's a democratic system, if it's a undemocratic system, you know. So then and there, where you can able to invest, other you will not invest, right? No business, no foreign investor will come into Guyana. No foreign investor will come into Guyana and invest under a government which is not stable. And no investor will go into a country where it does not have proper law and order. Right? In our country, we don't have proper law and order. And I hope that it will fix under this government, because in 1992, Chevy promised us, we had asked for two things from the URP in 92 election: to revive the constitution and to have law and order. And he promised both on both of it. And I hope, as Bharat said, he will correct a lot of the mistakes. I hope those are two major ones. As soon as they sit in government, they should start work to reconstruct the constitution, get the law and order going, get the GCOM overhauled completely before we go ahead in Guyana. And we will not have foreign investors. We will be dreaming in that. So it is important right now. We have to focus. What can we do to bring currency, foreign currency, and bring money into Guyana? And that is a major point we have to look at right now. And then we can talk about the university, then we can talk about this schooling and that schooling. We don't have the funds to start doing all this, because everything that we talked about, increasement of wage and so forth, it costs money. To get proper policing in Guyana, law and order, the police need to increase. And when you increase it to the satisfactory, and they take bribery outside, you put them in jail. Right. The same thing. They want law and order. Ensure the law and order is there and it's implemented. Politicians who do wrong things should go to jail. Any GCOM people who do wrong things should go to jail. Right? Like Mr. Lowenfield. He should be behind the bar and the key should throw it. And we know for what they have done to this country. Right? And this is what I believe in. If we don't put some of these people behind bars, we will not get nothing done in Guyana. We will continue having this lawlessness all the time in Guyana. It will be cure. And we can't stop corruption, but we can minimize corruption. No country in the world you can stop corruption, but you can minimize corruption. Even the United States has corruption, but we all try to minimize it to the minimum percentage. Okay.
Gentlemen, I know Leland asked a lot of questions there, and you guys give some great answers. Some of the comments we're seeing on the screen is that, as we all agree, corruption seems to be the #1 factor in Guyana. And if they can put a tab on that, I think that will, when there's corruption, it robs the country of its development. And we have discussed about the local business community taking the lead. But we also know that the local businessmen send their money overseas as well, because they have no confidence in the government. And that's a problem that the problem we have in Guyana.
And it's a means of eroding the inflation of the dollar too.
Yeah, for the last 5 months after the election, the PPP has been going around the country sharing a lot of hampers. The URP, Dr. Bandu, has also been doing the same. The people out there are in need. The people are suffering out there. And as Dr. Ford mentioned with the COVID-19, that add to the problem of the people. So, guys, what do we have to do to at least bring some immediate relief to the people of Guyana? Lennox, you want to start?
Okay.
Charles, I want to go back on what Dr. Ford said. Until we could get the COVID-19 under wraps, it is going to be a difficult economic road. I think the World Bank is anticipating a global recession. In Canada, I think at this point they're marking it comparable to World War I by the time it peaks. And those are developed countries. In Guyana, I would say that we've got an organic market, that we don't depend significantly on the exports. Guyana is an import country at this point. We export quite a lot of lumber and raw material, yes. But in terms of a variety of other things, we still have a lot of internal organic markets available. What can be done in the short term? Once again, I want to believe that at this point it would be presumptuous of me to say what is in store for the people from the People's Progressive Party, but I know that they've got a short-term plan in how to address these issues, and that short-term plan in itself would be to get people back to work, and you would not be able to do that until you get the COVID-19 under wraps. Until you get the COVID-19 under wraps, you cannot open the market, which would decimate the population, a significant amount of the population in Guyana, because the institutions, once again, are not strong enough. We don't have enough hospital beds, and I think Dr. Ford will hopefully correct me if I'm wrong. We don't have enough hospital beds, we don't have enough equipment and all of that stuff to cater for a massive spike in coronavirus. And once we have COVID in our house continuously, believe me, the economy is going to struggle. So those are some of the very first steps that we have to take. We could provide hampers. I'm sure that there may be a stimulus package on the horizon for people most in need. Beyond that, I cannot say much more. I think that's my contribution on that topic for now.
Mr. Schumann, even the hospital that was recently opened don't even have proper ventilators. It doesn't even have oxygen supply. And as regards to the export of lumber, that contract is shrouded in controversy because Bai Shanlin was given 1.25 million acres of land under the PPP. And you know that they switched from logging rights to gold mining rights. Well, they're not rights. They don't have no rights to mine gold. They can cut 1.25 million acres of prime forest timber and export it. And if an Amerindian cut one tree, he's hauled in front of the courts. Where are we going with this country? The country spends too much time idling. People spend so much time waiting in traffic to go to school and go to work. Think about this. If you have 500 vehicles and they have to wait 2 hours in traffic with 4 occupants, that's 4,000 hours a day. All right? That's 166 days. And if you travel to work 300 days annually, you don't work on weekends, that becomes 50,000 days, which is 136 years we waste per year in Guyana. The time you wait for transportation is horrible. The time you wait to get a document from the deed registry is horrendous. We have a lot of internal restructuring to do that doesn't cost money. All you have to do is to restructure the personnel and the programs. You need to computerize a whole lot of industries in Guyana. The deeds registry, the passport system, the birth and death registry, all need to be computerized. The public service is top heavy and very inefficient. They have too many layers of bureaucracy in that place. That's a refugee camp for people who can't get jobs. They go to the public service and the police force. That's where a lot of money is wasted. Our banking system is archaic. We don't even have a proper stock market where small people can put their money, not in the bank, but in the form of an investment. Why do you think there's so many robberies in Guyana? Because people do their transactions, use bags of money.
Let me interrupt you here. I think once again you have to go back to, and I don't want to sound like David Granger and his sloganism and all that
Please
stuff.
please don't.
But there is, in my view, and I'm led to believe that there are three tiers of services that potentially will be rolled out, and this is just my understanding of it. That there will be a short-term plan to alleviate the immediate needs of people. There is a medium-term plan to get people back to work, and there's a long-term plan that would potentially address all of those issues that you're talking about. But Guyana is not a country that could just twist at the turn of a dime. To restructure the banking laws, for example, requires, I think, a parliamentary act to be able to pass whatever legislation. And in order to get to that point, there needs to be consultation. And the consultative process in itself has to be comprehensive so that we meet those international standards. If you're talking about people stuck in traffic, yes, but at the same time, infrastructure cannot be laid down overnight. There needs to be a structured plan in place to address these issues. So I understand what you're saying, but it is going to take time to get to those serious benchmarks to transform this country.
Vishnu, you want to come in here with distribution?
Well, I think it is very serious that we have to understand that what we are doing in Guyana in like shipping out raw material and things like that should not happen. Like for instance, let us take, for instance, a timber take about 100 years to grow. And they cut the timber and they start shipping out to China. They're looking at nothing. It goes to China, the materials, with furniture and all these things, and make the hag of the money. Right? I don't think that Guyana should ship out any raw material from this country. I think that everything should be done in finished product and export to overseas. It is important for us to make money. Also, it's important to those who are making the decision to spend the money. Because we have seen in the past, we talk about manifesto on this program, about the PPP manifesto. We talk about the Pnc Manifesto. We have seen all these manifestos these guys made. None one of them has survived. None one of the manifesto that they really talks about, since they all were in government, they carry through it. And we keep on talking about manifesto. All of us here have manifesto that we put on the section. Right? But how much of us intend to keep our word? Look, for instance, the URP. We have asked on 2015 to join up with the AFC. We will have position too, but we decide not to because principle involved. We was asked also in this election to join up with the PPP before the election. And we have position too in Parliament. But we decide not. You know why? Principle involved. We told our people that the URP will not join with any of the two major political parties. Because we have seen them in action, we have seen what they have done, and that's why we stayed away from it. We tell the few supporters that we have, no mind if we have 10 supporters. We told them we would stay alone. And we kept our word and we stayed alone. And that's what I call principle. So We will not go forward and if I resent something, the URP will back it up. Look, although we didn't have a seat, not a seat in Parliament, we went to the Recount Center. Every tabulation, every recount station, we had people there. We had 50% registered for that recount. And you are.
All right.
Right? So,
Yeah.
today, we are also going out, getting hampers, distributing. Yesterday, we distribute 200 hampers. Today, we distribute the next 100 hampers. Right? We doing all of that from our own. So because what? We know the people are hungry. They need something. I just came out this afternoon from the area in Freedom Loop here by the seawall there. They have it in the sea area. People build houses there. I'll tell you, I had about 100 hampers in my vehicle. And when the civil land there, it didn't take half an hour to get rid of those things. Everybody rushing to the beach. And that shows the desperate situation people are in.
I think we're moving away from the real topic, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I think, gentlemen, thanks, Leland. But yeah, Vishnu, when we come back, Dr. Ford, you'll be on. But let's take a break for a short ad, and then we come back, we'll continue discussion. Thanks.
Okay.
Globespan is now pleased to offer train packages to Niagara Falls from New York City. This 3 days, 2-night getaway to Niagara Falls will include round-trip coach tickets, 2 nights hotel accommodations, admissions to the Skyline Tower Observatory deck, and the voyage to the fall boat ride. For this and many more train packages from New York City, call Globespan at 718-845-0437. That's Globespan 718-845-0437. Travel plans? Call Globespan, your train vacation specialist.
Looking for a space to rent? We have space available for offices, apartments, and retails. We have 2 locations available on Lot 3A North Road, Georgetown, and Lot 55 South Public Road, Rose Hall Town. Contact us today for more information. You can contact 624-0692 or 337-4287.
Okay, welcome back to our program tonight on Globespan 24x7. We want to thank our viewers for staying on with us as we continue this important discussion. Gentlemen, in going forward, what all of you said, it's so on point, and I really agree with Lennox as well when I believe that if PEP do have a short-term plan, they do have a plan for 90 days. I've been talking to some of their senior executive, and they really have a plan in place to attack all the problems that we have. Talking about forestry product, for instance, I used to work at Forestry Commission before I left Guyana. The wrong logs that ship to China and to Malaysia, the royalty is minimal. If they only make it a unit square, just make it a square, the royalty triples immediately. But they don't do that. So they ship out the wrong logs and we end up with absolutely nothing. So Guyana has been at the end of, the receiving end of the stick, basically. So gentlemen, I know it's not necessarily wise for us to advise the government because they have their people, as Lennox said, but what specific step, and I want you guys to identify 1 or 2 steps that the government should take to alleviate the problem that we have now in Guyana. Lennox, we can start with you. Oh no, Dr. Ford, let's go with you because you didn't last time. Yes, sorry.
Which problem particularly? You got a lot of.
I know, you select 2 and recommend the way out. Or anyone.
Okay. Well, as I was saying off the camera, that we believe in the new movement that the issue of national unity is one of the major issues in this country. We said that the country has not been able to capitalize on its vast natural resources, its vast land space, the talents of its people, mainly because of our political division, which is born out of the racial division. That's been all the way since the colonial days. So that is for us, that is one of the most important issues that we need to solve in Guyana. And we believe that there are a number of steps that we could take to minimize it. Right? We might not be able to solve it completely as with the corruption issue, but we'll be able to minimize it. One, we believe by having a formula for shared governance. All the newer parties advocated for shared governance because we believe that could go a far way in alleviating the racial problems that emerge every election cycle. Right? And we still believe in it. But with that, as Mr. Bandu said, it will need constitutional reform. So we'll need to enter into a period of constitutional reform discussions, and we believe that that should start immediately the first 90 days. We need to hold the government accountable to that because that is one of their major promises, constitutional reform. All right? Another thing, there's been a lot of racism on the internet, in the society, particularly around election time. We need to start making some of these people an example. We need to send a message to the society that racism and racial division is not the direction that we are going in this next generation. Also, a lot of the political operatives use this political divide, this method of political divide, to get into power. And they might not always verbalize it on the stage, but they keep it at some of the bottom house meetings. We see even some open meetings, we see people using racial slurs and something. We need to hold these politicians accountable for the things that they are saying because some of them are inciting it, right? If not overt ways, right? We need to improve the institutions that deal with racism and racial division, right? So the ERC, we need to give it a little more power. We need to put a department within the police force to go after these racial and these racist people and make them public examples. I believe that the law is strict enough. I think it gives them 2 years in prison, all right, for taking part in these kind of things. We need to start showing the country that we're very serious when it comes to racial division because we believe it's one of the major problems that causes the development. Also, we need to start in the schools because we believe that racism is something that is taught. Nobody is born hating one another. They teach it to us. All right, so just to teach us to hate, they could teach us to love one another. We need to have programs in the schools to foster national unity, starting at basic levels, primary school, nursery school, teaching about history, programs to help people together, do things together. And also the university will come with programs, studies on the racial issue and the national unity issue. Implement these solutions through a ministry like the social provision ministry, such ministry that probably the PVP would like to.
And before you said that you had which problem you have identified quite a bit. My question to you is, if President Ali asks you to come to Dr. Ford, you have identified this problem, I want you to come and work with me to solve it. What will be your answer then?
Say again, I didn't hear you.
You have identified a lot of problems that the country has.
Yes.
If President Ali said to you, Dr. Ford, come and I want you to, with this problem I identify, I want you to come with me and let us work together to solve it. What would be the answer to him then?
Well, as you know, I'm a medical doctor. I'm already working in public service. I have already dedicated my life to solving the problems in the country, particularly in the health sector. So anybody that invites me to alleviate the problems in the society, I would, as long as it's genuine, as long as it doesn't have any, you don't have to give anything, do anything, compromise morals and these types of things. I would accept the challenge, because I'm a public servant. I'm here to serve the country. I'm here to improve the country. That's why we join politics as young people, because we realize that we have a lot of problems in the country that need solutions. But
thank you.
I will work
Vishnu?
with anybody, including
Thank you,
political party.
Gerald. Vishnu, identify 2 problems Guyana have and how can we go about solving it?
2 problems Guyana have. Guyana have many problems. Guyana need a full overhaul.
I know, but identify 2. Let's forget about the overhaul.
Corruption is one of the biggest ones. We have to ensure that our law and order works. We have to ensure that people who commit serious offense or commit any offense pay the penalty. The law must not only apply to politicians and people with money in their pocket. It must apply to each and everyone in this country. I see that full system. After, we have to get rid of that. That's a very, very serious problem we are having in Guyana. I really thought this election, this racism will ease down. But the APNU, AFC, create a system, make the racism pop up like wildfire. We should have in our new constitution something called a law called hate crime. If you talk about racism and against racism, you must be charged, you must have a serious penalty. You must be able to avoid people abusing them, hate the race, and Indian race, black, and the 2 million people here in Guyana, the blacks, the Indians, it's 7 people. And we have to put this how we have to talk about. I asked the question earlier. So Dr. Ford,
Thank you, Vishnu. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Lennox, I know we talk about other sort of problems. Which one will you identify that we need to work on immediately?
I quite support what Dr. Ford would have said there. I think there needs to be greater separation of power, Charles. The institutional failures that we are seeing are endemic of a lack of separation of power. There is no reason why the executive should be interfering in the judiciary. There is no reason why ministers should get their hands straight into a police and pretty much change the application of the law with a simple phone call. There's no reason why someone should be able to pick up the phone and call the police to try to subvert the course of justice. And I think that will only be possible through a greater separation of power. And I say that against the backdrop that we have consistently through the history of Guyana, we've had a Minister of Legal Affairs who is also the Attorney General. In my view, the Attorney General needs to be a position that is vetted and endorsed by Parliament so that anything that comes to them is applied with impartiality. It is applied equally to every single person. And I think when you have that separation, just in that interlocutor between the executive and the justice system, that you are going to see a transformation in how they prosecute cases, for example. it may become easier to address the rampant corruption that we have experienced in Guyana in the last 54 years. We obviously have to restructure the economic model. Right now, there is a massive amount of the population that do not contribute to the economy, right? We campaign very heavily in indigenous communities. One of the biggest things is that indigenous peoples are not included in the economy. We go out and work in the mine, we work in the forest sector, but when you look at the tax revenue base for indigenous peoples, we don't have a massive base in that sense. A population of roughly 83,000 indigenous peoples, I'd say less than 10,000 pay taxes, if that much. That means that the contribution to the economy of indigenous peoples is minimal, and that is only indigenous peoples. You also have people across the coast who do not enjoy that contribution to the economy, and because they cannot enjoy that, it now becomes difficult for them to elevate themselves out of poverty for a variety of reasons. And there are a lot of studies that would have been done by the IDB, the World Bank, UNICEF, and all those things that speak to the alleviation of poverty, the access to power, the access to education, and all of these things. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just have to make the wheel function better for us.
Well, gentlemen, you've identified so much problems, and our time is running out. Program time is coming to an end. We have to close. But I hope that Dr. Ali is, if he can't watch the program, at least his advisors will let him know that the recommendations that were made tonight, so at least he can move. So, gentlemen, it's wrap up time now. So, Leland, you want to say anything before you wrap up?
Well, Charles, on the issue of democracy cannot be obtained by it being enshrined in a constitution. Democracy must evolve as a social culture. Nelson Mandela, famous words. And we cannot implement changes in the constitution if we have the same personnel to enforce such changes. So we need a change of laws, and we need a change of the people to enforce these laws. In terms of the two issues you're talking about that we need to address, one of the main, I can name, like Mr. Bandu said, he can name a whole set, but I'll name two. Housing. I don't see why people should be struggling to own a house lot or own a home. There is enough liquidity in the banking system to make loans available. Guyana has 83,000 square miles with barely 750,000 people. On the other hand, Sri Lanka has 19 million people with 50,000 square miles. I see no reason why every Guyanese can't get a free house lot, and I see no reason why half of Guyana should be living in Georgetown and the suburban areas. So housing is a crucial part because you have space for your family to develop. You don't have to live with relatives and get into issues and problems and get into police issues. Another major problem Guyana has, we should mention corruption already. Another major problem is our education system. First of all, we can't have a rum shop near to a school. In New York here, you have to be 400 yards away before you have a rum shop permit near a school. You can't sell alcohol to underage persons. And all rum shops should be closed on Sundays. And persons who are found drunk in public should be charged. We have to grab the bull by the horn, so to speak, and make positive changes. We can't expect changes to happen if our leaders don't change themselves. You cannot effect change if you yourself cannot change. So the two issues I mentioned here, education, housing, and the entire infrastructure of the country is run down, totally run down. People have to go long hours and long drives for water. The fact that Mr. Irfan Ali was the Minister of Housing and Water speaks volumes when one look at the amount of black tanks people have. The cost of putting 2 black tanks per home is about $250,000 with the plumbing, the cost of the tank, building the trestle and the pump. About the thousands of black tanks Guyana has. and the billions of dollars that have been wasted. Like I said earlier, it seems to be a case if you want milk, you must have your own cow. Guyana needs a whole lot of issues addressed, but you have to start at the bottom. You start with simple people. Mr. Irfan needs to meet the villagers and hear their problems. That's where you start. What are the problems facing your village, and how can this government alleviate these problems? How can we address these problems? On the issue of corruption, you cannot fight corruption when your government itself is corrupt. And both governments have been guilty of that. We have to move forward, and the only way we can move forward is if we can educate people. We can't put people in positions because they are party loyalists. We can't put them like the Apnu people did, like Mr. Granger did, put this army bodies. For instance, the Georgetown Hospital was headed by a former military man. Sort of education is a former military force. What I'm trying to say is that you need to put the right persons in the right place, and not through party loyalty.
And you said it well. I think Dr. Ali went around the country and he did listen to the people. So I think he's well prepared for that. Dr. Ford, anything was?
Well, in closing, I think Mr. Schumann alluded to a global recession, and also we had the threat of isolation because of the COVID crisis and because of threatened sanctions. So in order to protect the Guyanese people in the long term, what we need to do is to move towards a more self-sufficient Guyana, right? So I would hope that the new administration and everybody would come on board to ensure that we are self-sufficient in energy, healthcare, in agriculture, food production, and all these things. But in order for us to achieve anything, we need to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. Whereas everything else we talk about is vain. We cannot follow the one component, right? That's my quote.
Thank you, Dr. Ford. Dr. Bandu? Your mute is on. Your mute is on. You gotta unmute. So it's still on.
Dr. Bandu, can you click on the screen on the mic icon on the bottom left?
On the screen, yes. Okay, by the time we're still going. Lennox, you want to give your closing statement?
Charles, let me just say thank you to yourself, Leland, Vishnu, Gerald, and to the viewers. Obviously to Nohar and Devin. It's always a pleasure coming on here. For the people who are watching and listening, Guyana is on a new trajectory. It requires a little bit of patience to be able to change this path that we were going down and that brought us to this point. And it is going to take a tremendous amount of work to reverse that course, given the COVID-19 pandemic and the global recession, coupled with the global recession. So that being said, don't look for immediate drastic changes. It will have to be something that will be done gradually. And the country, collectively, all of us as a country have gone through a long, tedious process in the last 5 months. Some of us have gone through, somewhat of a failed democracy over 54 years. And it is this opportunity now that we have to change the trajectory of this country. And I think collectively, elections are over. Campaigning is over. What we have to start doing now is start building this country, and the only way we're going to get that done is to do it together. That is all I want to reassure and communicate to our viewers.
Thank you, Lennox. Yes, Dr. Bandu?
Yes, Charles. One of the most important things, when we had the COVID started here, we have reduced our fuel price. But we used to pay like $540 for a gallon of fuel. Today, the COVID is finished, and we will battle again to about 800 something dollars a gallon. I think Guyana needs immediate change in Guyana. We need to stop our fuel. We are having the highest price of fuel throughout the Caribbean, United States, Canada. Right? If we drop the fuel price, everything actually depends on fuel. Manufacturing companies, industries, businesses, everything is also taking their business because of the fuel cost. Our thing in Guyana is the fuel. And we need to send that immediately, and that is I will advise Dr. Irfan that this is something we should do that right away. Now that Guyana is fuel, our price right down. And if our price goes down to we start right in Guyana in the business. So that is what the advice I would like to our recommendation. I listen.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. And it's been a really pleasure this evening to have you guys on the program. Dr. Ali, if you're listening, God has blessed you now to be the leader of our country. You're 40 years old. Think of it, the year you were born, the 1980 Constitution came into being. So maybe God has give you this position, change that Constitution. As our panelist says tonight, the problem of corruption will not stop unless we have an independent police force. If the police is being effective in the execution of their duties, corruption will continue. If we are allowed to function independently, we are on your way to solving corruption and to bring law and order to our country. Guyana need to be healed. Dr. Ford talked about healing the nation. And we pray that together, as you execute your program, I know that you went across Guyana. You went almost every community. So you know what the needs are. All you have to do now is to get your people in place to implement the program. Now, Selena Henry, one of our viewers, she said that if you don't perform, Mr. President, the next election, we have great leaders like Dr. Ford and Mr. Schuman and Mr. Jonas and Dr. Bandu and all the others, Dr. Kisoon and so on, who's ready to take on that responsibility. So I know that you will perform, Mr. President. So we're asking you, you have our support. Unite our nation. Let us lift our motto of one people, one nation, one destiny, and together we can solve our problem. If we all put our hands to the plow, there is no turning back. We want to wish you, Mr. President, all the best, God's blessing. May you have guidance and protection. May He give you wisdom and understanding and courage to ensure you lead our country to a great, prosperous nation. Gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for being the program tonight. You have been wonderful. I pray, God, that the President will listen to you, your views. So when you come back the next time, we'll be able to give some more advice to a president who I'm sure is well prepared to lead our nation to prosperity. To all our viewers out there, I want to thank you so much, to Noir Singh and to Devin. Thank you so much. And guys, don't forget, please go to Globespan 24x7 and make your contribution so we can continue this program. To all of you, good night and all the best. God bless Guyana.
Thank you.